Today we will discuss about the foreign trade in British period. So basically, before British came to India, our foreign trade was quite good because we were self-sufficient in producing our agricultural goods and some industrial goods also. Okay, but when British came, the composition, volume, and direction of trade was totally changed. Why totally changed? Because British make uh, some policies which was totally biased to their countries. Okay, and that is why they wanted to produce goods for their own country. In this part, we will see why our country's foreign trade changes during the British period. The first point is British wants to be an exporter of primary products of our country and importer of finished goods. What British wanted to be our country? British wanted that our country should sell, that means exports primary products like silk, cotton, wool, sugar, jute. These products India will export to British, and Britain will make the final goods, and after that they will sell these goods to our third world countries like India and other countries. So what they wanted, they wanted as exporter of primary products and importer of finished products of our country. That means our country will produce those goods which will be used in Britain's industry. Next point is monopoly control of British rule. So as British at that time, British was the government. That is why they maintained some monopoly control over India's exports and imports. That means total control was in the hand of British government, and that is why they were the monopoly in our country, and that's why foreign trade was restricted. Foreign trade was restricted. That means India cannot trade with other countries like China, Sri Lanka, Persia, with these countries. Okay, if British, that means Britain's, think that uh, India can export some goods, then India can only sell these goods to other countries. Otherwise, our country cannot export goods. Okay, why? Because Britain, that means British, was the monopoly power in our country. Next is drain of Indian wealth during British rule. So many wealths at the time of British rule, so many wealths has gone to Europe, that means Britain, through ships. That's why it is written here. Under the British rule, India became an exporter of primary products. India became an exporter of primary products like coal, like iron, okay, like jute. These goods totally exported to Britain, and these products are used in Britain's industries. They produced final goods, and these goods, after that, they sell to our country and they earn profits. To make payments for expense incurred by an office set up by colonial government in Britain. So what the British government did for our country? What the export surplus? If they have only export surplus, that means if we have only export surplus, this surplus export, that means the money that we have earned that time, only used for making some offices, only making some offices. Which offices? Which will be used for the Britain's government, that means British government. That means after exporting, the amount of money we have earned, this money is used for making some offices which will be used for the British government. Next point is to meet expense on war fought by the British government. So after exporting, some amount of money is used for war because British, that means Britain, was involved in Second World War, First World Wars. Okay, for meeting their expense, our country's money is used over there. And the last point is to import invisible items. We also import some invisible items, that means some services we also take from British governments. Next is demographic conditions. Demographic conditions means we will analyze here the concept of populations. So there are some statistics is given here. The first official census, that means census means it's a type of survey. Survey means we collect informations from the peoples. So first official census, that means survey, was conducted in 1881. Suffering from certain limitations, the census revealed the unevenness in India's population growth. So at that time, that means there are so many limitations. That means that survey was conducted by the British. That is why there are so many limitations. That means so many hindrance our country have faced. But still, the British government produced a report of 1881 survey. From 1881 onwards, after every 10 years, our country conduct a survey, that means census, all over the country. Okay, and that is called population survey or census survey. So during the colonial rule, some demographic changes happened in our country. So demographic changes means some population changes. Okay, how our country's populations changes day by day, we will see in this report. The first point is high birth rate and death rate. So during the British rule, birth rate refers to a number of children born per thousand in a year. So birth rate shows what? Birth rate shows that, here the birth rate shows the number of children born per thousand in a year. That means every year thousands of birth increases. Death rate refers to a number of people dying per thousand per person in a year. That means death rate increases. At that time, death rate was per thousand per person, and birth rate was per thousand per year. Both birth rate and death rate were very high, at nearly 48 to 40%, 48 and 40 per thousand respectively. So that means at that time, birth rate was 48 per thousand and 40 per thousand in death rate. That means such high rates indicates a backwardness of a country and lead to a massive poverty prevailing all over the country. So this type of high birth rate and this type of high death rate shows that our country is a backward country, and this also shows that our country prevailing some poverty. Next point is extremely low literacy rate at that time. That means 1881 survey, it shows that our country is a very extremely low literacy rate. How much it is? Only 16% of the population was, at that time, less than 16% of the population was literate in our country, and female was only 7% in our country. Next is poor health facilities. There is also, it shows that health facilities was also very poor. Public health facilities were either unavailable to a large mass of populations. That means access to health facilities, that means medical college, that means medical facilities, that means hospitals or health centers, was not accessible to the population. With the mass of populations cannot access hospital facilities or medical facilities at that time. There are so many airborne disease, there are so many waterborne disease happened at that time, and so many people died at that time due to lack of medicines or health facilities. High infant mortality rate at that time also, it shows that a high infant mortality rate. Infant mortality rate refers to number of infants dying before reaching 1 year of age. 1000 live birth in a year. So what is infant mortality rate? Infant mortality rate means how many infant, that means how many childs died before 1 year per thousand. Okay, per thousand, how many child died in a before completing their 1 year. The infant mortality rate was quite alarming, about 218 per thousand. At that time, how many infant mortality rate it shows? It shows 218 birth out of 1000 birth, 218 birth the children died before completing their 1 year. That means it shows nearly about 63 per in contrast to the present infant mortality. So now it the present mortality rate is near about 63 per thousand. It shows in the book 63 per thousand in the book. Present infant mortality rate. 5. Number 5 is low life expectancy. Life expectancy was very low at that time. What is the average expectancy? Life expectancy refers to average number of years for which people are expected to live. That means average expectancy of the peoples. Average expectancy of the peoples means people's life will be, people can live life, people's life will be people's life will be less than 32 years. People's life will be less than 32 years. Okay, that is low life expectancy. Low life expectancy means people's life will be average life they spent. Average life, the average number of people spent their life. That means how many years they live. Average number of people's how many years they live, and it shows that only 32 years is the average life expectancy. Okay, at present, how much people live life, the average number of people live life at present, it is 63 years. Okay, so these are the points we have discussed, and tomorrow we will discuss another part. Okay, thank you.